Noble women visiting ancestral houses wear white. They had several disasters. Perchta von Rosenberg, Perchta z Rožmberka, was a figure representing conflicting fact and myth. Noble women fought in the 15th century. South Bohemia's lords of Rožmberk owned castles at Český Krumlov, Jindřichův Hradec, Rožmberk nad Vltavou, Telč, and other. The local family crest is a silver-backed five-petaled crimson rose. Aged approximately 1429, Perchta was born in Český Krumlov to Oldrich II, z Rožmberka and his wife Katarzyna z Warttemberg. Oldrich aimed to elevate the family among aristocratic competitors. Perchta was raised well, according to all accounts. The clerics taught her to read. Sewing, spinning, cooking, and needlework were her skills. Noble women visiting ancestral houses wear white. They had several disasters. Perchta von Rosenberg, Perchta z Rožmberka, was a figure representing conflicting fact and myth. Noble women fought in the 15th century. South Bohemia's lords of Rožmberk owned castles at Český Krumlov, Jindřichův Hradec, Rožmberk nad Vltavou, Telč, and other. The local family crest is a silver-backed five-petaled crimson rose. Aged approximately 1429, Perchta was born in Český Krumlov to Oldrich II, z Rožmberka and his wife Katarzyna z Warttemberg. Oldrich aimed to elevate the family among aristocratic competitors. Perchta was raised well, according to all accounts. The clerics taught her to read. Sewing, spinning, cooking, and needlework were her skills. She chased Peter z Sternberka, Peter von Sternberg, a gorgeous local knight, to be his ideal partner. Her father used her as a pawn to forge an alliance with the Liechtenstein family, dashed her ambitions. The game started poorly. When Perchta was 20, she lived with Jan VZ Liechtensteiner, a terrible widower. Her father was requested to marry her for love, not money. Oldrich persisted. The deal was done before Perchta knew. Oldrich and Jan's wedding ceremony didn't matter to Perchta. Why Perchta thought she could pick her husband was beyond them. Both couples bought pigs in a poke after bad marriages. Jan was broke despite his confidence, so he demanded Perchta's promised dowry. Oldrich expected money to cross since he had little dowries for 2 more daughters and 3 sons. Dowry, delay, for Perchta. After their 3-day wedding, Jan and Perchta stayed at Jan's Mikulov Castle and other family homes before relocating to Vienna. Perchta would not be house mistress, she was told. Jan's mother and sister controlled the house and wouldn't give her castle keys. Jan, his mother, and his sister-in-law declined exceptionally impoverished Perchta. They treated her like a servant for the deal. Her inexpensive food was leftovers and kitchen trash. Her chamber was cold, so winter rags substituted furs. Dowry payments didn't enhance Perchta's health. Not even daughters and sons helped. Perchta begged her father and other relatives to rescue her, but divorce was unheard of, and neither side wanted the drama. Although her father, brother Jindřich, and former boyfriend Peter ze Sternberka offered assistance, it never arrived. People told her to be patient and optimistic. She often missed weddings and funerals of relatives in the Rožmberk line, and her husband's servants constantly watched her for escape. John was unwell, but Perchta cared. John begged Perchta's forgiveness before dying. She refused. John cursed her before dying in 1473. Her independence waned. She was buried in Liechtenstein's tomb aged 46, following a Vienna outbreak 3 years later. Her tale survives burial. A curse bound her soul on earth. Her white-clad ghost was seen at castles in Rožmberk nad Vltavou, Český Krumlov, and other family white ladies who stay in one castle or room travel less than her spirit. She comforts the Rožmberk children when the nanny is exhausted or unable to work. She was foresighted. Her wearing black gloves meant a relative was dying. White gloves meant good news. She enjoyed smiles. Maids tolerated and avoided her. Born in 1539, Peter Vox Rožmberka and his nanny disagreed on child-rearing practices. Perchta threatened to leave if ignored by the nurse. As she left through a solid wall, she asked the nurse to tell Peter she helped. Story says Peter Vox found a treasure in the wall where she vanished. Returned from 400-year rant after WWOTV. In 1944, the Nazi youth organization League of German Girls reportedly used the castle in Rožmberk nad Vltavou. 2 girls draped long red flags with white swastikas from the castle tower. Perchta's spirit struck. Scared women dropped flags. Flag unfurling failed earlier. All young ladies went insane. Investigators investigating group insubordination quietly fired the suspect. Berlin rejected scared girls' ghost stories. In the late 1990s, the White Lady revisited Rožmberk nad Vltavou castle to examine the changes. She often visits Český Krumlov and voices concerns about tourist noise and appearance. She shouted from a window to turn off a loud portable radio. She died when earbud-equipped portable music players appeared. No one heard her scream. The family castle paintings mimic her ghostly White Lady clothing, indicating they were painted after her death. Rožmberk nad Vltavou Lady identifies Enochian letters in a magic circle, a language of angels hypothesized by Edward Kelly and John Dee in the late 16th century. Whoever deciphers the text will be liberated from her curse and get a Rožmberk reward. One stated they broke the code in 2010. He believes Peter Zesternberka was her true love, describing her unfortunate marital dates and years. Not sure whether he became wealthy. Are often connected with a sense of mystery. Grottos and caverns, in addition to abandoned mines and tunnels, lure those who seek them out in the hope of uncovering something new or solving an old riddle. Jihlava catacombs are a unique and fascinating example of an underground, artificial building, and they have a special position among these types of structures. The town of Jihlava, which is located in South Moravia, Czech Republic, was founded by German immigrants as early as the 13th century. These catacombs are located in close proximity to its location. There is a network of subterranean tunnels that is more than 12 meters deep and 25 kilometers long. The overall size of the network is around 5 hectares. There is ongoing discussion on the origin of the catacombs. According to one version of events, they began when German colonists created silver mines. Another version of events is that they dug out the occupants of the city so that they could hide there during times of conflict and fire. Individuals were able to remain below for an extended period of time and emerge at night to attack their rivals without their knowing, since water and food were stored on the first level of the catacombs, which consisted of 3 stories. As a result of the catacombs sinking to such a great extent in the middle of the previous century, some sections of Jihlava's city streets began to collapse, which necessitated the strengthening of the building walls. There are rumors and mysteries that surround the catacombs of Jihlava. The mysterious force of the catacombs has been connected for decades to the organ sounds, ghosts, and other paranormal phenomena that may be heard at midnight in one of the passageways of the medieval subterranean tunnels. This connection has been made possible over the centuries. People in the scientific community who used to disregard ancient tales of mysterious dungeons as unscientific are now being forced to take into consideration new testimonies that may be trusted. Based on the findings of an archaeological trip that was carried out in Jihlava during the summer of 1996, it was determined that the local catacombs hide secrets that have not yet been solved by scientific research. The place that is mentioned in the tales on several times has been the subject of claims made by scientists that they have heard organ sounds present there. The subterranean canal where it took place is 11 meters deep, and at the same time, there is not a single location in the vicinity where such a tool might be discovered. This eliminates the possibility of an accidental error occurring. Psychologists, after examining eyewitnesses, have determined that there is no possibility of a mass auditory hallucination. The most important thing that happened was that archaeologists found the glowing ladder in one of the subterranean corridors that had been examined the least. Even the locals who had lived there for a long time were ignorant of its existence. It was discovered that there is a stone staircase that dates back to the early Middle Ages, and a brilliant light emanates from it in the darkness. The material samples that were obtained did not provide any evidence to support the presence of phosphorus or any other phosphors for that matter. The staircase, according to witnesses, does not immediately stand out as especially unusual. Nevertheless, as time passes, it begins to radiate an increasing quantity of light that is somewhere between reddish-orange and orange. Despite the fact that the lantern that is aimed toward the stairs is switched off, the light that is emanating from it does not disappear or become any less strong. In addition to the stairs, a full hallway was found, and the walls of the corridor were illuminated by a luminescent light that had a greenish hue and was very brilliant that it could be read. In light of the fact that there have been no current reports of new scientific research into the dungeons, the mysteries surrounding the Jihlava Catacombs have not been successfully resolved. Daliborka Tower is at Prague Castle, Czech Republic. It was once a jail for aristocracy, but subsequently housed others. King Vladislav II Jagiello commissioned Benedict Reed to build the Daliborka Tower in 1496. The 5-story building was formerly considerably taller. The cells are small, yet the worst criminals go to the tower's bottom. The lowest level was an oubliette with 320-centimeter walls and a hole at the top for escape. A pulley would drop troublemakers into it and starve them. The tower is decorated with torture devices. Its inmates were solely tortured in the dungeon. They have a thumbscrew designed to crush fingers and romantic iron cages. Since the late 19th century, the Daliborka Tower has been available to the public. Daliborka Tower's name, what is it? Though numerous convicts lived in the tower, its name comes from its initial tenant, Dalibor of Kozogedy. Czech nobleman Dalibor of Kozogedy notably became involved in a disagreement between another Czech noble and his Litoměřice peasant serfs. Due to Adam Ploskovsky of Drahonis's cruelty, his peasants rebelled in 1496 and forced him to promise to release them. Since Dalibor of Kozogedy treated his people properly, the peasants called for his protection. Dalibor accepted the deal, but Adam Ploskovsky broke his pledge and denounced Dalibor and the peasants to the royal authorities. Taking in rebellious people was a capital offense in 1497, and Dalibor had stolen his neighbor's property for personal benefit. Peasants were defeated and forced to return when Dalibor was jailed. A newly built tower was used to confine Dalibor by King Vladislav Jagiello. Most tales show him as a valiant protector of the downtrodden, yet there is some evidence to the contrary. The land registers in Bohemia show that Dalibor was twice prosecuted by his father for misappropriating family property in 1490. Dalibor was dragged back to court and lost when the judge decided in favor of his father. Dalibor spent his life in the tower awaiting punishment, whether he was honest or not. Legend has it that he bought a violin and practiced. Gradually, his talent increased. He was famed for playing the violin in jail, and villagers came to hear him outside his tower. Executed in 1498, his violin playing ended forever. After then, the tower was known as the Daliborka Tower and inspired Bedřich Smetana's opera, Dalibor. Though there are darker Dalibor and violin ideas, his tale stops here. When Henry, the Cistercian abbot, was sent to the Holy Land in Palestine that everything got started there. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, in Jerusalem, which is the location where Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, was the location where he carried back a jar of dirt there. After his return, he covered the cemetery with the soil and left it there. In a short amount of time, the word of his behavior spread all over the area, and as a result, Sedlec became a popular location for burial. It was also possible for certain individuals to bring their deceased relatives to be laid to rest on the holy soil of Sedlec. Across a short period of time, the plague was responsible for the deaths of a great number of people across Europe, and a great number of those who had survived the disease traveled to Sedlec. Many individuals were laid to rest at the Sedlec ossuary in a short period of time, which led to the conception of the idea of establishing an ossuary. An ossuary was constructed by a monk who was partially blind, and he was the one who organized the bones. Nevertheless, the bones were organized in an artistic manner as they are now, which is more than 300 years later. One of the local woodcarvers, František Rint, was given the responsibility of adorning the church with the bones in the year 1870. On top of that, the incredible outcome speaks for itself. The location is now often referred to as the Church of Bones, and it is now home to the arrangement of 40,000 human remains. A Czech filmmaker named Jan Svankmajer created a documentary on the ossuary in 1970, which was 10 minutes long. This was 100 years after Rint had adorned the ossuary. Sadly, there is just a Czech version available. There is no English version. It was when Henry, the Cistercian abbot, was sent to the Holy Land in Palestine that everything got started there. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, which is the location where Jesus was crucified at Golgotha, was the location where he carried back a jar of dirt there. After his return, he covered the cemetery with the soil and left it there. In a short amount of time, the word of his behavior spread all over the area, and as a result, Sedlec became a popular location for burial. It was also possible for certain individuals to bring their deceased relatives to be laid to rest on the holy soil of Sedlec. Across a short period of time, the plague was responsible for the deaths of a great number of people across Europe, and a great number of those who had survived the disease traveled to Sedlec. Many individuals were laid to rest at the Sedlec ossuary in a short period of time, which led to the conception of the idea of establishing an ossuary. An ossuary was constructed by a monk who was partially blind, and he was the one who organized the bones. Nevertheless, the bones were organized in an artistic manner as they are now, which is more than 300 years later. One of the local woodcarvers, František Rint, was given the responsibility of adorning the church with the bones in the year 1870. On top of that, the incredible outcome speaks for itself. The location is now often referred to as the Church of Bones, and it is now home to the arrangement of 40,000 human remains. A Czech filmmaker named Jan Svankmajer created a documentary on the ossuary in 1970, which was 10 minutes long. This was 100 years after Rint had adorned the ossuary. Sadly, there is just a Czech version available. There is no English version.